Hello, everyone. You will now hear a brief retelling of the movie The Sixth Player. Enjoy watching it. The Tyler brothers play on the school basketball team. The gym teacher asks his son Antoine to stop kicking the ball into the parking lot. The team is 1 point behind, and the man says that his youngest son Kenny should make the last shot. A and K are forever written on a poster by his mother. Little Kenny stopped at the ring, but he doesn't believe in himself and falls back on his talented brother. However, Antoine couldn't throw the ball and the team lost. The frustrated kid doesn't understand how he could have missed. Mr. Tyler reminds his sons to always play with passion and dignity. Also, if the brothers always stick together, anything is possible. Separately, his father talked to Kenny and asked him to have faith in himself and his strength. Years went by. The Tyler brothers are the main stars of the varsity team. Thanks to their efforts, the Washington Huskies could become champions for the first time in 10 years. During halftime, the team's mascot was injured and passed out. Coach Peterson gives the attitude, "If they get the hell through, I'll send you back to Siberia to chew ice." To Serbia coach, "Whatever." Kenny intercepted the ball and passed it to Antoine, like he was supposed to. He made the slam. Commentators predict a professional career for Anton. His mother congratulates her sons and says his father would be very proud of them. In the evening, the whole team gathers at the bar. Kenny looks over at his girlfriend, and then his full glass is knocked over by some nasty fat guy. The beer spilled all over the bar and went straight into the smiling stranger's purse. All Kenny had to do was apologize and leave. At the same time, Antoine got into the ring on a dare, standing with his back to him blindfolded. Cheryl approached him, unhappy that the guy was dynamiting her. But Antoine's competition comes first. Kenny, on the other hand, isn't doing so well with the girls. Right now, to prove otherwise, he made a bet with his brother that he could get the phone number of absolutely any girl here, and Antoine pointed to the very stranger. The girl realized what was about to happen and just walked out of the establishment, but she didn't run away from Kenny himself. It was strange that such a talented player should turn out to be so clumsy. The girl gave her name as Aryan John and left about Kenny alone. Kenny Tyler's advice: don't argue if you can't win. Turns out Orsi is the new reporter at the student newspaper, and she complimented Kenny on the latest article. The Huskies have an important game tonight. With 4 minutes to go, they win by 2 points. The Huskies are getting closer and closer to a championship. Kenny committed a foul, and after 2 free throws, the Huskies went on the attack. Kenny gave a pass to his brother, and he did young in familiar fashion. Right at that moment something happened to him and the basketball player collapsed on the floor. Antoine was put on a stretcher and taken off the court. He promised his brother he would come back. Kenny was very worried about him. Already on the street, Antoine began to lose his pulse. In the ambulance, his heart stopped and they resuscitated him. The Huskies lose, but Kenny doesn't care. He hurriedly changes his clothes to go to the hospital. But the coach comes into the locker room with a sorrowful face and informs him that Antoine died on the way to the hospital. Heart attack. Upset in the ocean, the whole team hugged him. After that, the Huskies sprinkled in 4 straight losses. Kenny can't get his act together. Reporters are bugging him. Left alone on the court, he turns aloud to Juan and says he can't do it by himself. He needs his brother's help. ORCI approaches the guy to offer her condolences. Kevin complains that everyone keeps bugging him about Antoine's death. The coach is still hoping they can make it to the big leagues. But for that to happen, it's time to start winning. He scolded the Serbian for trying to throw a 3-pointer. He's never good at it. A disgruntled Kenny tossed the ball up and for some reason it never came back down. Coach Peterson supports Kenny, but warns that he may have to be replaced for the rest of the season. But he's an important link. If he gets his act together, he can save the team. Peterson needs a leader. Kenny, he says, is still playing with his brother in his heart. Next game, the Huskies lose by 12 points. And the worst player today is Kenny Tyler. Suddenly, the kid heard someone whispering advice to him. The ball suddenly reached Danny, and he threw it into the hoop. But his opponent's ball popped out of the ring and flew right at him. 7 seconds left in the game, the Huskies trailing by 1 point. The opposing team has the ball. Suddenly, it flies out of the basketball player's hands like a cannonball. Tyler makes the pass, but the ball takes a strange trajectory and goes straight to the basket. And the Huskies, with a 3-pointer, win the game. Great game. My brother hears Kenny whispering in the locker room again. I'm right next to you. Don't you recognize me? The taps opened by themselves in the shower and Antoine emerged from the water. There Kennedy tried to convince himself he was delirious, but suddenly his little brother grabbed him from behind to hit him. The ghost didn't come out. Antoine reminds his brother of his father's words. If they are together, anything is possible. Except for Kenny, no one sees him, because he is the one who called him. And his brother needs to get used to it, because they will be fighting for the championship. Kenny is now constantly distracted by his brother's jokes, and from the outside it looks very strange. The ghost keeps up with him and embarrasses him every time. The game is even today. Major was already running out behind the line, but Antoine threw him right back to the basket. Another time, he covered Chuck so his opponents wouldn't get points. Antoine just sat on the ring and kept putting the ball away. Even with those tricks, the game was even. As always, everything would be decided in the final seconds. Kenny started jostling with his brother Arce, realizing something was wrong with him. Antoine decided he had to do everything himself and carried 6 across the court and gave a pass to Kenny. He put the ball in the basket in his brother's style. Thanks to the win, the Huskies finally made it to the big leagues. In the locker room, though, Kenny's strange behavior raised questions. The players thought he was just crazy with grief. Kenny approached Barca, but according to her, the invisible man is already keeping her company. In light of recent events, he didn't even realize at first that it was a joke. After receiving an invitation to a date, the journalist started talking about the game. How supernatural does this all seem? The players hang in the air for 6 seconds, and the ball flies on some wild trajectory. Suddenly Antoine came out of the pool. Kenny first screamed in fright and then started talking to the ghost. What on earth is he seeing? Thinking about it, Antoine advises not to mess with the reporter. She's definitely sniffing around something. But, in Kenny's opinion, his adversaries are just jealous of him. He himself is now only interested in girls from horror movies. For these words, Antoine took Kenny for a stranglehold right in the middle of the street and continued to torment him in front of the basketball players. They were convinced that their star had definitely chased the geese and demanded that Kay not explain himself. But the brother doesn't stop and the weirdo looks just as weird. Eventually he says it's all his brother Antoine and gulps for air. He asks the ghost to show himself to the others as well, so that they will believe him. The genius throws the ball to Low Danny and tells him to make a tank. Antoine helps him up to the jump. Danny sprawled out and after you argued and made it to the basket. Everyone is amazed, but not enough to believe in a ghost. Then Antoine gave them a natural poltergeist and appeared on the big screen. And Scott tried to hit the hoop for the 15th time all season, but it ended in injury again for him. Tonight is the first game in the big leagues. The Weasel Magician. Arce's supervisor sits her down and says she needs a career breakthrough. And there's something weird going on with the team and it definitely involves Kenny, who she's gotten close to. If she tries hard, she might get on the cover of the sports news. Antoine demands that her brother pass to the Serbian for a 3-pointer. And the blonde man succeeds. It was his first successful attempt on 13 shots. A scuffle erupted on the court when the opponent remembered his brother Kenny. The turd was about to make a free throw. Antoine got all over him and launched the ball under the dome with all his might. The next time, Antoine possessed the ball and demanded that shithead not poke him in the eye. Frightened, he just tossed the ball away and ran away. The Huskies won, and Kenny scored a game-high 36 points. The team celebrates in the locker room, and Kenny goes on a date with ORCI. A girl tries to figure out the secret to his incredible game. As usual, Antoine interferes in his brother's personal affairs. He doesn't like the journalist in Kay's bathroom, despite himself between his legs, demands he not meddle when not asked, especially on a date. The other man misunderstands him. Antoine continues to pester the younger man and lavishes his dish with hot sauce and douses it with water afterward. Thirsty, yes, the strange date has come to an end. Kenny was about to kiss Arce, but with an eager face he ducked into his brother's palms. Supportive. He got ahead of Antoine, though, and pecked the girl on the cheek. And then on the lips once more. Kenny had a fight with his brother. The coach came out into the noise and asked who he was talking to. Antoine wouldn't stop grumbling and eventually, offended, left his brother, a fisherman in passing, from the picture. But he didn't really go anywhere from his brother. The Huskies are doing great. In the championship. One day Antoine even got members of the opposing team to stuff each other's faces with Huskies and get closer to the finals. During the next game, Antoine demands that his brother listen to him, not the coach. In addition, he walked in on Luther and broke the rules in his body. The player had to be replaced. Luther wants Antoine to get off his back. And Kenny tells his brother that he has lost his head and is already hurting the team. Although, of course, the Huskies win by 19 points again. McCarskey demands that Darcy get information about the unusual team once. And at this point, watching the tape of the game, she noticed that Luther hadn't even touched the ball during the shot. She also read from her lips that the player had mentioned the deceased Antoine. The team arrived in New York for the final games. The guys stopped by to talk to Kenny. They don't want Antoine on the team anymore. He won't let anybody play right when he was alive. The ghost freaks out and starts rattling the room. Antoine tells the basketball players that they are ungrateful. Kenny has the last word. Jimmy, he's my brother. If he wants to play, let him play. Kenny decided it was time to talk about everything. And just then Makovsky and the sports reporters called her over. But the girl still didn't want to give away her boyfriend's secret and threw the sensational article in the trash. The Huskies made it to the semifinals. The team mascot jumped towards the ring for the 17th time, and this time Antoine still saved the poor guy and interrupted his string of injuries. The dogs are countered by student star Smith. He expressed Kenny's respect and had a kind word for his brother. The team can't counter anything against Smith. He's tearing his opponents apart. Antoine got angry and launched Smith into the basketball hoop. The star was injured and his team lost. The Huskies made it to the finals. Kenny went to the hospital to check on Smith, who had a concussion and a broken collarbone. Artie guesses that Antoine did it. He's dead, but he's still in charge of his brother. Kenny comes into the locker room before the game to talk to Antoine. He asks him to stay on the bench today. Kenny is tired of it. Antoine reminds him that they've always been partners and dreamed of a championship. Except that Kenny thinks he's been on the sidelines all his life and has been in his brother's shadow. If Antoine gets on the court today, they just won't play, they'd rather lose. Antoine got mad and left. The coach encourages the guys and asks them to give it their all. True, they are up against the clear favorites. 3 of the team are future NBA stars. Expect the Huskies to lose right from the start, even though they try very hard. The first half ended 42-22. The guys are frustrated. It seems that without Antoine, they really are nothing. Without the ghost, they can't win. But Kenny has a different opinion. They should return to the court with Antoine, of course, but in their hearts with an understanding of what he has given to the team. Ghost, hearing his brother's words, let out a tear. The Huskies began to bounce back with great enthusiasm. Commentators celebrate Kenny's phenomenal play. Ziggy scores a 3-pointer with 2 minutes left in the game. The Huskies are down by only 4 points. They nearly expire with 17 seconds left and a 2-point lead over the Twins. They move to tight defense. 7 seconds in, the ball was replaced by Timenov. But then during a pass, Kenny intercepts the ball and rushes to the basket. He shoots from behind the 3-point line and that's when Antoine shows up to back his brother up. But Kenny asks him not to touch the ball and the ghost disappears, and no help is needed. The ball went into the basket and the Huskies became champions. As everyone celebrated the victory, Antoine waved to his brother and headed toward the light. He admits that it was exactly Kenny's victory, and he was only in his way. Before he left, Antoine reminded the younger man of his father's words and wished him to be next year's champion as well. Later, Kenny looks toward the lights and the coach asks him, "Is this our 6th player?" "Yes," answers Kenny, and to the end.